We got a couple minutes, so let's not jump the gun. We don't want to miss anybody. Yes, that's that's where my home office is. Yep, he's right next door in Tampa, Florida. That was a joke. I know Tampa. Even though I did have a high school education in California, I do know that Tampa and Las Vegas are not next door.
Well, I show 7:30. Keith, you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it. Will, do you want us just to take off and start this thing? All right, Anthony, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, buddy. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And Will Zambrano, thank you so much for having us. And Keith and I wanted to talk tonight about CCIE version 5. And really, what we were looking forward to doing was answering all your questions about this new certification from Cisco. A little bit about myself. So I started teaching with Keith Barker back in 1996. Yes, I said that right. Back in 96, Keith and I met each other working for a company called Mastering Computers. We have bounced around following each other from training organization to training organization over the decades since. And now Keith and I are very, very proud, very excited to be full-time teachers with CBTnuggets.com. So if you want to check out our training videos, we encourage you to do that. They are now at CBTnuggets.com. And one of the courses that Keith and I are enjoying working together on right now is nothing less than CCIE version 5. We call it our all-in-one video course because what it does is it provides complete preparation for the written as well as for the lab certification exam. So it's a one-stop shop for videos addressing both the written and the lab. If you have a question for us, it would be really great for you to chat it in, all of the questions live that you chat in via that chat console in the lower left corner. Keith, what did I forget to tell about you? There's got to be some embarrassing things I forgot to mention.
That list is way, way too long. I got involved in computers. I love technology. 80s. I was a cashier at a hardware store, and I saw the guy who came in to fix the computers and the registers. He had a silver briefcase. I thought, you know what? No idea what he does or how he does it, but I bet I could learn to do that. So that's how I got into the industry back in 1987 when I first started working for EDS, and ever since then it's been a blur. I'm not sure how 20, 30 years have gotten by me, but it's been a blast. Anthony, this course that you and I are creating, we talked about a lot of it. We had the idea that if we were going to do something, it had to be really, really good, because we know I mean, you and I have worked for other CCIE prep companies, right? And we know who's there. We respect them for what they do and the labs they create. But creating this all-in-one course for version 5 is going to be unique, a niche in the marketplace, because I think, just personally, it's going to be one of the first times that the entire CCIE, everything from soup to dessert, is going to be broken down into digestible, easy and fun to eat chunks. So anybody who really wants to get their CCIE is going to have an opportunity, a better opportunity than they would previously of getting that certification.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I mean, one of the things that you and I have done, Keith, that's so cool is how we'll get into a topic and we'll discover, wow, wait a minute. There's 20 minutes to talk about just this one bullet point. So our video ends up being 20 minutes in length, but just on a single bullet point in a single blueprint section. So it's just so great not to have any handcuffs on the format. In other words, you know, all right, you're going to make a video course on CCIE and it must be exactly 12 hours in length, you know, something like that. We have the freedom at CVT Nuggets to do this course in whatever way we see fit to ensure it's the most thorough video training on the planet. So, yeah, what an opportunity.
Yeah. In fact, do you mind if I share that example of that video we just made that had that scenario?
That's great. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So we're creating this video. We collaborate. Anthony and I do say who's going to do this, who's going to do that, and how we're going to make it all work. And I thought that we would have this whole video, you know, about 30 minutes, these 4 topics, and it was ICMP unreachables of all things. It took a 20-minute nugget to cover all the different types. So ICMP unreachable, of course, is a type as a code 3, and then we have type 3, and then we have the various codes for the ICMP unreachables. And yeah, going into it, we thought this would be a breeze, and after the fact, we thought, you know, we need to make a whole video on that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's, you know what, it's a learning experience for me too, because protocols that I thought, you know, maybe I learned something like a year or 2 years or 6 years ago, it gives me a chance to revisit that with my experience behind me and dig into it deeper to give some insights that perhaps I didn't see previously and that are going to be very important for a new CCIE candidate to make sure they cover.
One of the things that we've had fun doing with the videos too is going beyond the blueprint. So we are adding what we call bonus tip videos to this course, where we have the freedom to discuss things like study strategies, exam strategies, how to best use the documentation CD. So again, great flexibility in not just covering the blueprint, but covering the content that we've found students really want, as Keith and I have helped them prepare for CCIE now, literally between the two of us, for decades in length. One of the things that...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Keith.
I was just going to, one of the big things that is on a lot of people's minds is the new format for the actual practical lab. And I know we already created a video on that, but you want to take a moment, Anthony, and just give them kind of a picture of the changes in the new format as far as time-wise and so forth?
That's exactly where I was going, Keith, because I know that's an area that always gives students, you know, grave concerns. And we've got really, really good news to exam format. The good news item is simply this. You can get an extra 30 minutes of time in this new exam format for the initial troubleshooting section. Let me say that again, because you probably might be having a hard time believing that. The troubleshooting section will now give you an extra 30 minutes of time, stretching it to 2.5 hours if you need that extra time. Now, you are going to be sacrificing 30 minutes out of your section, so it's not, you know, we don't get anything for free in life, do we? And it will be penalizing ourselves with 30 minutes in the config section. But what was happening to a lot of candidates is they were failing to complete the 2-hour troubleshooting in the 2 hours, and then they found that they had plenty of time in the config. So most students would rather trade that 30 minutes out of config for their 30 additional minutes in the TS section. So there is a TS section that can now go up to 2.5 hours. There's then a 30-minute mandatory 30 minutes. You have to sit there for the full 30 minutes diagnostic section, which really is just like a written exam, just with a bunch of exhibits that you're going to pour through and try and ascertain the problem from all this exhibit information. And then you'll have your configuration section, which might be, 3 hours in, 5 hours in length if you took the full 2.5 hours at TS, the 30-minute diagnostics. Now you've just got 5 of your 8 hours left. You must pass all 3 sections in order to pass the exam, and that's no big surprise, since in the previous version 4, we had to pass both the TS and the config in order to pass. Great question from the audience, Keith. What's new in version 5, and what's the quick history of versions 1 through 4? What a great question. This exam, back when Keith passed it, when we were all in our 20s, and the hit song was the Jackson 5 ABC, back when Keith passed it, it was really, really a different test. Keith had a 2-day exam in which he was awarded points for physically cabling the stuff together. I mean, he literally had to build a rack and then configure a rack. A lot's changed. Now we are on virtualized equipment, completely virtualized operating systems in this exam from top to bottom. You never see any of the equipment, and you are accessing it all via a computer interface. Literally click on a router on a diagram and a console window pops up. There are no longer any printed materials given to the candidate. The big topical addition on version 5 that's really interesting, to say the least, is they have added VPNs from a security perspective. Keith was quick to point out to me, hey, Anthony, VPNs have been on version 4 in the form of MPLS Layer 3 VPNs. Great point, but the new addition to the VPN content for Route Switch is the DM VPN. So we are going to have to know and be able to configure DM VPN as well as IPsec point-to-point VPN. Keith, of course, got a big smile when he learned this because he absolutely loves this content, being a CCIE in the area of security as well. And we certainly look forward to those nuggets where we will guide Route Switch students through VPN security configurations. Pretty exciting stuff.
Absolutely. And also, because it is virtualized, we have some things that have been taken off the plate, from a switching perspective. For example, things like private VLANs. They don't do private VLANs inside of the virtual switched environment. So that would be maybe on the written, but not in the lab environment. Also, other technologies like Layer 2 quality of service, or COS. We're not going to have that in the lab because we don't have the hardware in the lab. But those are still game and fair game for things like the written. Now, also, I'm really happy about this. Optimized edge routing, performance-based routing. I have zero sadness that so many students do not any longer have to practice and lab that up on a product, a technology that is faulty. I mean, it's hard enough for somebody with everything correct to get it working in a production environment, and let alone somebody in a lab with, a whole bunch of variables. So PFR is still in the written, but it won't be one of those big, oh no, they have to prep for. That's a benefit of something you don't have to study quite as much for from a lab perspective.
Yeah, optimized edge routing or performance routing was a nightmare for students in the version 4 lab, especially considering that it could be what I consider a core task. And let me give you a quick definition on that. From a strategy perspective, one of the things I teach my students to do is look at a task and immediately decide if it's core or not. Now, what does core mean under my definition? It means that if you don't do that task, if you skip it, you will lose. So a core task, by my definition, is any task which must be completed in order to gain additional points. And, oh boy, there was some nightmare stories in version 4, how if you didn't get your optimized edge routing working beautifully, which can be a real challenge, then you could be in a situation where you could lose multiple sections worth of points. So good riddance to optimized edge routing, especially considering on different iOS code, you would have dramatically different results utilizing that particular technology.
So, Anthony, what do you think about frame relay no longer making it to the lab? I know there's a lot of mixed feelings, like saying goodbye to an old, an ancestor. Hate to see him go, but It's about time. What are your feelings about that no longer being part of the practical lab?
Yeah, it's disappointing for students from one perspective, I think, Keith, and that is the inevitable, oh my gosh, there went 6 easy points. So, I think that's where it's troublesome for students. Frame relay is so straightforward, easy for students. They've been dealing with it for so long in Cisco CERT that really they're upset to see those easy points go off the lab. But obviously, from a credibility of the certification perspective, it is indeed wonderful to see that antiquated technology go.
Yeah, and one topic that's actually very important for the real world and also new to the CCIE version 5 is interpreting packet captures. Being able to, get a dump of either looking in Wireshark or just getting a dump from something like a router that's created it for you, and being able to take a look at packets and interpret, okay, what is this? Is it an anomaly? And I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of stuff showed up in that diagnostic section wedged in the middle between troubleshooting and lab config, where they're asking you, here's a scenario, here's this output, here's these Wireshark captures or packet analysis, and what do you think of it? I think those are important real-world skills. I'm glad to see them there. Also, while we're talking about stuff that went away, I also am happy about the fact that things like the zone-based firewall, which is fine if you're like a CCIE security, but zone-based firewall is now removed from the lab for a route switch, as well as, what else went away? The iOS IPS. That's also gone. That's good news because it gives you a chance to focus on more things that are really relevant to routing and switching as opposed to just security. So I'm pretty happy about those modifications as well, Anthony.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you look at this blueprint from top to bottom, you realize it was a dramatic improvement, and it is indeed technologies that the modern technician is likely going to run themselves into. I mean, you could make a great case for DMVPN and even Get VPN, which is a written exam topic only, but still, that's awesome that students are getting exposure to it because these are technologies that are being implemented that they might run into, and with something like DMVPN, you really can't say, well, yeah, that's a security thing, that's not my area as a route switch guy. You could definitely argue that that's core connectivity now, and that's something that we should know as route switch candidates.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say this, if there's any specific questions that you have, my friends, in this room today, please feel free to type them in the chat window, and we'll be happy to take those on as we can. But Anthony, I interrupted you. What were you going to say, my friend?
Yeah, no, I was just going to remind everyone about the chat queue, and while they have us, there's no question that's out of bounds. I mean, if Keith and I can't answer it, we'll tell you, we'll be honest, but please ask it. I love what you said about the diagnostic section, Keith. Guarantee we'll be seeing packet captures in there for analysis because that was specifically mentioned on the blueprint. And one of the videos I can't wait for that Keith will showcase for us will be his advanced techniques with Wirecast. Keith recorded the only Wirecast training I've ever seen, like Wirecast, that would be Wireshark, by the way. Keith created the only Wireshark training that I've ever seen, and it is unbelievably awesome. So that's going to be a course that you will be interested in. And again, he will be sharing with us in the CCIE course great tips and tricks on that product. David Gomez has a question. If I take the version 4 written, how long would that test qualify me to take version 5? Great question. Awesome question. The answer is there is no time limitation on that. Absolutely not. Cisco's very fair about that. So if you take the version 4 written tomorrow, you've got your full duration of time in which you have to do a lab exam attempt, even though you'll be doing version 5. Okay, so they let you mix and match on those versions, and there is no time penalty whatsoever. So awesome question.
I think that time. So when you take a CCIE written for route switch and you pass that, the number 18 months comes to mind. Is that accurate, or is it 1 year? Do you recall, Anthony, off the top of your head?
I think it's like 18 months. Whatever it is, that's the full duration. There's no penalty on them. Yeah, there's no penalty on them because they did V4 as they're written. No penalty whatsoever.
Gotcha. So whether it's version 4 or version 5 written, they've got that same window of time before they attempt either lab.
Yep. Now, we have a question in the queue as I'm looking up the Wireshark tutorial link. Actually, Keith, why don't you grab your link on your Wireshark course and paste it in for us? That'd be great.
You got it.
All right, great. So we're going to provide the URL to Keith's Wireshark training, and I'm going to answer Francis's question. Francis says, do you think the CCIE route switch cert still holds as much value as it did 5 to 10 years ago? What do you think about the future holds for the value of the route switch cert? Francis, I absolutely do think that this has held its value, incredibly so. And, you know, there's never been a substitute, though, for your interviewing skills, for your communication skills, right? For the breadth of your experience that you can demonstrate. I mean, I think so many times people forget that. You see, the CCIE most likely gets you in that interview room, and then, of course, it's up to you to really shine. It's up to you to demonstrate that you have this great breadth of experience and knowledge across all these important areas today, like virtualization and virtual private networks and things of that nature. So I've never been one to worry about devaluation of this cert at all. What a lot of people do is they'll say, oh my gosh, look, the numbers of students that are passing is skyrocketing, and oh my gosh, there's cheating going on in this country or in that country. Listen, don't get caught up in that stuff. There's always going to be cheating on exams. There's always going to be locations around the globe where that's heavier. And guess what? The person that cheats or attempts to cheat their way through the route switch, they're doomed. They're doomed in an interview. You know, they're doomed in their careers. So why are we worried about them? Yep. So I would not focus on that, as cert is still very, very respected. And I'll tell you, the older, more seasoned CCIEs, they'll tell you, these guys that have had it for decades, they'll tell you, look, that test is a heck of a lot harder today than it was in my day. I mean, they will flat out say, I'm glad I didn't have 12 trouble tickets and 2 hours to solve them on 30 different devices. And that's a realistic depiction I just gave of the troubleshooting section. You'll have 30 to 40, you'll get like 12 tickets, and base time, you get just 2 hours. That is an extreme challenge. So they've done a great job of making this exam very, very difficult for someone that doesn't know their stuff to pass. And what other questions are out there? I can see we've got the link to Keith's Wireshark training. That's amazing. I'm going to mention another Keith course that you folks really need to consider. I went through it myself, loved a minute of it, and that is the course that Keith did on GNS3, another subject that lacks training, excellent training, that can really, really benefit us, especially in the pursuit of CCIE. So Keith has done an amazing job on GNS3 as well, something everyone in this room should consider unless you are blessed with a beautiful rack of production, non-production practice equipment that you can utilize for your CCIE.
Yeah, there's now, as many people are aware, GNS3 is this year, 2014, going to come out with version 1.0, and they've announced additional switching capabilities in it. So I've been keeping very close track with that, and it's going to be exciting to see what they do come up with. But I think unless they come up with something really, truly amazing in the switching category, which I'm not holding my breath for, frankly, it's still going to require physical switches to test and practice most of the content that you want to from a layer 2 switch perspective, even though all the routers in the lab and the switches too in the lab are going to be simulated. But we don't have the same iOS on Unix and the same tools that Cisco has. They haven't released those yet. So the reality is GNS3 is going to be fabulous for virtually everything you'd want to practice inside of CCIE version 5, except for the layer 2 stuff, because the emulation, I haven't seen the emulation yet to the point where I'm saying it's going to be great. So I hope I'm wrong, Anthony. I hope they come out with something truly amazing where I'm going to say, oh, you don't need hardware switches anymore to practice, just GNS3. But as of now, it's a combo. GNS3 for the routing infrastructure and physical switches if you want to practice the layer 2 stuff.
Also exciting, Keith, is Cisco's virtualization practice, lab product, and we should see that in February of this year, so that's right around the corner, and really going to be interesting to see how Cisco makes that product available. One of the rumors is that students will be able to purchase an appliance, a rack mount appliance with all that software loaded up, and they will be able to virtualize every single Cisco operating system right there in a rack with this particular appliance. So going to be exciting to see what happens with that. So we get this question all the time, and that is, what track should we take? What's the most exciting track? Which Cisco certification track is the hottest? Well, I think route switch has got to be the starting point. I mean, I really believe that everybody interested in Cisco networking should at least go route switch through CCNP. Then I think from there, you could launch into, hey, look, two of the most exciting tracks right now, security and data center. I mean, security's
Welcome to any meeting. Line is now unmuted.
A resounding yes, it is possible. You know, that student will probably put in 1,500 hours of practice, as opposed to someone who does troubleshooting of OSPF for a living. They'll have to do less hours of practice equipment. So lots of variables when it comes to CCIE.
Yeah, when I got my CCNA 99, and then I got my CCIE in 2001. So and I had not touched any Cisco gear before 1999. So I mean, that was only 2 years, including the experience I had between then. But yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, though, Anthony, would you? I mean, as far as trying to get ready that quick on something they hadn't had a lot of the more experience you bring to the table, the easier it will be to learn the edges and the pieces that you don't know and make them all fit together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem. I was just pointing out that, you know, obviously two extremely hot tracks right now are security and data center. Now, security, you know, it's always been hot, right? But now with especially the security breaches getting the attention around the world that they have been getting, security just gets hotter and hotter. Also because, of course, of the way we're centralizing and virtualizing data, security really comes to the forefront, because now when you have a security breach, you're not just getting some data. Many times you're getting an unbelievably large quantity of important data. Then, you know, the other track that's just hugely hot right now is data center. And the reason why that is because that is how IT departments now are trending. A lot of people think that Cisco's data center technologies are for those of us out there that want to build the next YouTube. Well, yeah, certainly data center technologies are geared towards unbelievable scale. I mean, that, you know, it's like spanning tree protocol is dead. Stick a fork in it. Why? Because spanning tree protocol in the data center is not nearly scalable enough. So we have technologies in the data center that kill spanning tree protocol. But that's how it's for everyone. And these data center technologies are for the smaller IT shops, where they're going to start with a couple of C-Series rack mount servers from Cisco, plug those into like a Nexus 5K, and that's how they're going to begin their data center technologies in a very small implementation. But the technologies are still more efficient, more high performance, more reliable, less total cost of operating that equipment. And yeah, it's just an extremely hot area. I am very, very blessed to be teaching the CCNA data center and CCNP data center at CBT Nuggets, and I'm sure at some point down the future, the data center to a CCIE level. It's fascinating technologies, and I think everyone in this room owes it to themselves to at least do the NA data center, so that when someone says Trill or Fabric Path or virtual extensible VLAN or VXLAN is the new buzz term, when these technologies come up, you want to be able to understand them. You want to, you don't want to be the one guy in the room that says, "Woo, rapid spanning tree is the way to go," and have everyone looking at you like, "Oh my gosh, why are you talking about spanning tree? That technology we are killing." So I went off a bit of a tangent there, but you can tell I'm awfully excited about data centers. So thank you for giving me that time. The great news is Cisco is about to address that head on. So the product, they codenamed Viral, which will not be the release name of the product. It will be something along the lines of like the Cisco Lab emulator or what have you. It'll have a much more official sounding name. Cisco is going to allow us to now build a topology that consists of Nexus 7Ks, 5Ks, 2K fabric extenders, fabric interconnects, plug in a simulated UCS chassis, and practice configuring devices. We don't know the price tag. We don't know the exact varieties and ways Cisco will make these labs available to us, but it is going to be remarkably affordable compared to any other option. I can tell you one way they're going to be made available, actually. Okay, I will say this because I know it's going to happen, and that is they will make rental time on the data center equipment available through their Cisco Learning Network store, just like they've already done for things like MPLS and Route Switch. So you will go up there, you'll say, I want 7 Nexus 7Ks, I want 2 5Ks, and I want 2 fabric extenders, and I want to use them for 4 hours. And you will rent a block through the Cisco Learning Network store. So great news for those of you that aren't fortunate enough to have $1 million data center rack to practice with. There is a solution coming directly from Cisco. Well, Keith and Will, I want to thank you guys so much. Keith, I know you and I are going to be talking tomorrow as we plan the next video in our course. In fact, I'm going to do tonight, because I'm so motivated, I want to do a video tonight on what I brought up here in this event, and that's the strategy of core versus in the lab exam and how important those are to get straight. So for a bonus tip video from me, everyone, published in the next 48 hours in our course, you can find Keith and I's CCIE Route Switch all-in-one video training course in the list of upcoming courses from CBT Nuggets. And what's really neat about that is you can watch them as we release them. We are releasing them in order, so you can put it on your to-do list. Let's say every Friday you check in to the course, see what videos we release that week, and enjoy them. Enjoy them is the key. Please remember, make this enjoyable. Make your pursuit of CCIE a real joy. I've been around so many people that failed to achieve it, and one of the reasons they did is they didn't enjoy the process. So please, please get yourself in a place where you feel very fortunate to be studying for this highly, highly regarded certification. I love David Gomez said, security is not enjoyable. That's great. Yeah, that's the other thing. You know, when you're picking a track, pick what interests you. Pick what you're excited about, because it's hard enough. When you try and put a round peg in a square hole, that's going to be a nightmare. So, well, Will, thank you. I have another meeting, actually, so I have to drop off. But thank you so much for the time you've given us tonight to meet with your peeps.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, everybody. Okay, bye-bye.